Welcome back to Poetry and Politics. Jamaica seems to be locked in a situation from ever since. Most of the people in Jamaica who demands justice does not even seem to understand the meaning of justice and what justice is. Remember that justice is defined. Justice is defined is justice is a just behavior or treatment. A concern of justice, peace, and genuine respect for people. And in any country, justice is genuine respect for law and order and everything that is good. That is what justice is supposed to represent. And it's justice can derive as a form of liberation. Whether you are wrongfully accused of a crime that you did not commit, or justice in, say, Jamaica, then justice, people are seeking justice from whether it be criminal enterprises or some kind of criminal behavior, a freedom from those kind of behaviors, and domestic justice from domestic violence and all of that. But people in Jamaica seem to define justice as self-preservation, define justice as what they deem to be right for them, even though it's not under the law. That is how people in Jamaica defines justice. So therefore, their self-justice will lead them to behave in an appropriate manner in terms of certain cases that are in Jamaica have been going on for years, and people see to, oh, we want justice. A man is arrested by the police for committing a crime because they don't deem the arrest is appropriate. They call it injustice. Your family member is killed, you want justice. And Jamaica is a country that deem to put self-justice or jungle justice over every other kind of justice. And that is the kind of Jamaican society that we are living in these days. That is what Jamaica has come to. People wrong conception of what justice is. Like people will say then, all right then, if you are a criminal and a man kills you, then your family does not deserve justice. Or people in high society are the only ones that are supposed to get justice. Justice is nothing that extends to people of high society or people who have control. Justice is for everybody. And justice is supposed to serve the entire citizenship of Jamaica. So if a man's family is killed, he needs justice by bringing the perpetrator to justice. That's the form of justice that we want in Jamaica, that everybody that wrongs another person should pay the consequences, and that to me is the definition of justice. Remember that in a police department, the police should investigate for and against. The police should never have, police should always be neutral. Even when you are arresting somebody, you have to be neutral because you have to allow justice to take its course. Now, as a detective, you have to if you take a report from somebody that this Tom Strokes shot me, and you go to the police and you make a report that Tom Strokes shot me. Therefore, the police should investigate, take your statement, collect all the evidence, and if and when Tom Stroke is held by the police, whether on warrant, it should be on a warrant because you have a preliminary report. So you as a detective must prepare a warrant upon conducting your investigation and has been satisfied that some miscarriage of justice has taken place, that a man was shot and killed, or a man was shot and injured, or a man was chopped up or cut up or some kind of abuse, then you as a police, we as a police in any country, is the first step in attaining justice for victims of crimes, whatever no matter how minor the crime might be or how major the crime might be. And then a detective puts this file before the court, where the court, upon listening to the evidence and perusing the file properly, and a court must come to a conclusion if an offense was committed, and by who the offense was committed, and against who the offense was committed. We have to remember that some offenses are committed against the state, while some offenses are committed against the person themselves who are making the report. Say, for example, if a man report to the station that he was shot at, it don't have to be shot at by a specific person, then a crime has committed. And the offense of shooting with intent is committed against the victim, whilst the illegal possession of firearm is committed against the state if a firearm was used in committing that crime. So the justice in this case will be the police sending a file to the court, and the court, upon seeing that yes, the investigation merits a trial, then the matter is put before the court. When the matter is put before the court now, all the witnesses are brought together, all the evidence are brought together. And if the evidence is so conclusive that the person can be convicted, and after the witness's statement and all the exhibits are prepared and shown before the jury, if there's a jury, or the judge, and the judge make a decision that yes, this man is guilty of the offense, then that is justice. No, I am not saying that people don't tell lies on people. People do that. But what you need to understand, when a policeman interviews a witness and collects the information from the witness, and there's sufficient evidence to prove that an offense has been committed, especially, say, in a case of shooting, then yes, we will go in the area and investigate for yes, gunshots were heard, and yes, spent shells were seen on the scene. That would be suffice to say that yes, an offense of shooting was committed, and as a result, an investigation should start in the matter. No, if the person who commits that offense is caught, then the file will be brought to the court, where the judge will decide at trial if the perpetrator is guilty of the offense or not. And at the end of the day, what the decision the judge come to is justice. So, like I said before, people lie and people will tell lie. And as a detective, this is what I used to do. If a man comes to me and report a case of shooting, and I go and I collect his statement, and I go in the area and I carry out my investigation, no gunshots were heard, no spent shell were found to support a shooting, and yet the person said, this man shot at me. No, as an investigator, your job is to put the file together, and if the perpetrator is held, you can send that perpetrator before the court. But this is what most detectives fail to do. We fail to write, and we fail to take up the responsibility to investigate for and against. So whenever you carry out your investigation, if upon your conclusion of your investigation, it is borne out that no shooting took place and that the victim is actually telling lies, you as a police officer cannot take it upon your head as a police officer to say no offense was committed and stop the investigation. No, it does not work like that as a police officer. What you can do as a police officer, what I used to do, is send the matter before the court after the suspect has been arrested. And at the same time, you make a recommendation on the files based off of your investigation carried out and evidence collected. There was no evidence to prove that a shooting actually committed. And you're going to write a report and put it on the file like that. So now it will be up to the prosecutor in the case to peruse the file and look at the mitigating issues and say, listen, a shooting was not committed. No, it is the onus on the prosecution to either continue with the case to trial or dismiss the case based on the fact that there's no evidence to prove the case. That is how I used to do it. I don't know how detectives do it nowadays. But you have to remember, as a detective, you can't take it up on your head sometime and just throw out a case like that, because you know what is going to come next. People seeking justice because they hate that man, or them have something against that man, even and the victim who is telling lies on that man will say, guess what, the police is taking sides or the police sell the case, because they don't see that kind of justice. All them need to do is that them tell a lie upon a man, and the police and the judges and everybody is supposed to send that man to prison based off a lie or based off a report that was not substantiated. So we as detectives has to be careful when people make reports to us, because people make report for various reasons. People make report out of spite. People make report out of hatred. And people make report out of gang-related activities. Because you might have gang-related activities going in an area, and you will have side A coming to the police and say side B shoot at us when nothing no go so. Side B will do the same thing too. And if somebody is arrested from side A, then guess what? Side A make back a false report to the police, wanting the police to arrest a man for an offense that did not commit. Because guess what? They can't get to shoot somebody or carry out their own kind of jungle justice. Then they report it to the police, expecting the police to just jump at it without investigation and charge somebody. No. It's all well and good that the police can always charge a man, you know. But you can charge a man based off the evidence collected. And like I said, write a report and attach it to the file when you send it to the court. So the court can decide if this matter should be tried or this matter should be done with. And as a police officer, it is best for you to leave that to the decision of the tribunal, of the prosecutor, who will look at the file based off of your report and based off the evidence collected. It says to say that, listen, we have no evidence to continue with this case. I can remember one time I was charged for murder, and it was on a coroner's warrant, and we went to the court. Remember, it was a fatal shooting. The victims of the family wanted justice, wanted their kind of justice, and they wanted we, the police officers, to be convicted even when there was no evidence to substantiate a murder and not a justifiable shooting. So the matter was brought to the circuit court. And a matter of fact, Paula Llewellyn was the director of public prosecution at the time too. And she was the one attached to the case. And there was no evidence. The first day we went to court, the prosecution said that there was no evidence to substantiate the claim of the Crown that the officers involved in the shooting acted illegally and that the shooting was not justifiable. So a jury was empaneled, and we were found not guilty on the first day of court because there was no evidence. There was no evidence to substantiate the shooting, the fatal shooting as murder, and there was no Crown witness in the case either. But yet we were charged as policemen, and was placed before the court, all because the victims of the deceased wanted their kind of justice, jungle justice. They wanted their personal justice, even though the case could not prove otherwise. They still wanted it to go a certain direction. So that is where we are at in Jamaica now, where people just want justice and feel like justice is just like that. That when something is committed and they feel that something is committed against them or their families, then they need the situation to be addressed in their way. These people do not respect the law, and they do not respect the judiciary system in Jamaica to carry out their duties. So therefore you will always have conflict of interest as it relates to cases all the time. And sometimes the police officers are blamed for just carrying out their duties, for just doing their job in a neutral way. Because like we said, as police officers, we have to investigate for and against. We have to be neutral. We have to take the report, carry out the investigation. If there's no proof to the offense, then we cannot, the matter cannot be brought to the court. The matter can be brought to the court, but the matter will never continue because there is no evidence, and no court is going to waste any time to carry out a trial on a matter. There is no evidence to prove the offense. The matter will be thrown out, and then people get upset now. Like in my case, the families of the deceased man was upset and demanded justice that did not even exist. Which the justice in that case was served because we, the police officers, were set free, and that was the justice. Because the case, every case stands on its own merit, and there was no evidence to prove that any of the officers involved acted in a manner that was not self-defense. But yet the family of the deceased could not accept that. So they run to the news media, trying to use the news media to corrupt the whole thing and talk about Paula Llewellyn was corrupted and the whole judicial system was corrupted, and Jamaica for Justice was also lobbying the same thing. In this case, Paula Lewin had to come forward and state to the Jamaican public why we, the officers, were released, because there was no evidence to prove that the shooting was a murder, and there was no evidence to prove that we, the police officers, acted out of self-defense. We acted on self-defense. There was no evidence to prove otherwise. But yet, these people, including the Jamaica for Justice, even though there was no evidence to prove that we acted otherwise, still wanted the matter to continue. And then they saw it as grave injustice because justice took its course. So these are the situations we are faced with in Jamaica. That's why you have so much jungle justice. Man, we kill man just because I hear he say. Man want man to go to prison because I hear he say. And as a detective, you cannot believe in hear he say as a detective. Jamaica is filled with rumors and hear he say. And most of the people in Jamaica wants the police to act off hear he say same way. There's only one case, there was only one type of case in Jamaica under the English law that you can use hear he say to prosecute, and that's a rape case. If a victim is raped, then if she tells somebody after being raped that, listen me, John Tom raped me, then that is the only case where they accept hear it to say, yes, you told that person that you were raped. And yet, if that will not even suffice for a conviction either, because for you to prove that rape, then you have to prove all the points to prove. And if none of the points to prove, if any of the points to prove are missing, then it's not rape. And if you go to any tribunal and a point to prove an offense is missing, then the offense in its entirety is not completed. And therefore, you will have the matter will be thrown out of court and the accused will walk because the evidence was not suffice to prove the case. But the Jamaican people, most of the Jamaican people do not see it as that. They do not even understand what is justice. Matter of fact, most Jamaicans, the typical Jamaican, doesn't even understand their rights when it comes to dealing with police. There's a citizen charter on these laws that tells a citizen what to do in a given situation where police are involved. And there's also a charter that tells the police how to act in a certain way when a given situation arises. So you cannot force the system to accept your kind of justice, what you want. Justice is not what you want personally. And that is where most Jamaicans are going wrong. They think justice is what they want personally and not what can be proven. And that is how you have a whole heap of murder in Jamaica sometimes, because people not satisfied with the job that the police have done in an investigation. Guess what? So them take up the line of them own and by going and murdering that person because they did not get their justice. So people don't care sometimes if somebody is lying, because people make up story all the time. So you as a detective have to make sure, say, as a report is made to you, then you look into the situation, you investigate, brother. And it comes back to the thing again, a police who has no knowledge of his profession is a danger to himself and the organization. He's also a danger to his country. And you will waste the court's time from time to time if you bring cases before the court that are not prosecutable. And the people who demands justice in the case will not see it that way because they are looking for self-justice. So that's the only justice that most people in Jamaica wants to exist. Justice. Oh, this is what I want. And this is my justice. It does not work like that. It swings both ways, for and against. The judicial system has to be neutral, or else there will be anarchy in the country. There has to be some form of control. You can't just bawl for justice and get justice. So justice is not what you want. Justice is determined by law and nothing else. Nothing else. And any learner or any learned detective, or trained detective, or experienced detective can tell you these things. So the Jamaican people need to do their research and they need to read more. And the thing about the Jamaican people, don't listen. Jamaican people are a bunch of bandwagonists who just jump on anything they hear on social media. And then that is the next thing. Social media is tearing up investigations and causing problems in investigations because people are following the stories on social media rather than the facts in the case, which is a detriment to the society and which will cause nothing but anarchy in a society. A group of people demanding justice as they see it fit. Justice is not as how you see it fit. Justice is according to the law and according to the judiciary of Jamaica and according to the crime that has committed, and whether or not there is sufficient evidence to prove that this crime has been committed and there is sufficient exhibits in place, witnesses in place to prove the offense. So when a man walk because there is no offense, you know if you complain about injustice because there was no proof. A man can kill your family, of course, and yes, him do it, but the police does not have the evidence to prove the murder. And then you're saying it is injustice. You can't say that because the police has to prove the case. There's a thing called wrongful arrest, so police can't just go around and lock up people like that without proving the offense has been committed. And until Jamaicans start to read and get themselves up to date with all of these laws and the rules and the mechanics of arrest too and the judge's rule, then people will always be lost. It is time for Jamaicans to start reading more and understanding their role in society and understanding how the rule of law works and how real justice works.